You are listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with Steve Worsley, the toxic mold expert and your number one source for mold consulting and mitigation in the USA. Let's dive into a brand new episode.
Before we get started on this episode, here's a not-so-short disclaimer. While all attempts have been made to verify the content provided in this podcast, neither the podcaster nor the producers assume any responsibility for errors, omissions, or alternative interpretations of the issues discussed here. All information stated in this podcast is the opinion of Steve Worsley. Steve Worsley is a mold specialist with over 25 years of experience in the construction and mold industry. The Toxic Mold Podcast is for information sharing purposes only. The views expressed are those of the podcaster and his alone. These views should not be taken as expert instruction or commands. While there may be references to medical conditions and symptoms, all podcast episodes are the opinion of Steve Worsley, and any medical questions or concerns shall be addressed with the appropriate licensed medical professional or professionals. As the podcaster refers to different mold types, please be aware that Steve Worsley is not a microbiologist, and questions concerning mold specifics should be answered by the appropriate professional. Steve isn't, nor does he offer any legal advice. For any legal advice, you must speak to a lawyer. The listener is 100% responsible for his or her own actions. You can check out Steve's books on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search for author Steve Worsley. You can also take Steve's mold education courses, such as Mold 101 and the Mycotoxin Prevention Kit, by going to cnccontractorservices.com. Again, check out his mold education courses at cnccontractorservices.com. Now, let's get to the episode.
Hello, you're listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with myself, Steve Worsley. We have my wife, Cassandra. How goes it?
It's going well. How's it for you?
Just another day in paradise.
Living the dream.
Exactly. So today's topic, I get this question all the time, so I figured we'd do an episode. But new construction and toxic mold prevention. The question I always get is, should we just sell our house and move?
Well, and that's an interesting question because people do that in a lot of areas of their lives. And John Kabat-Zinn, who's the father of mindfulness, has a saying that says, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
Which applies to this topic because what we've found is that people who move from house to house thinking, okay, that house had mold, we'll get a new house. Or that house had mold, we'll build a new construction. They typically tend to run into mold wherever they go.
Exactly.
So what's your take when people say to you, should I just scrap this house and just get something new?
Well, we've talked about it before. I've done mold inspections, mold remediation on brand new construction homes. So you kind of just answered it. I mean, I've done mold remediation on $20 million homes. Like, mold can be anywhere. And so when my clients ask me that question, my answer is, well, so you're going to just up and move from where you are right now and move into a new home. What if that brand new, because this is more about new construction, what if that brand new home has mold?
Absolutely. And what if you have now sunk all of your money into a more expensive brand new home that needs remediation and you don't now have extra money to fix the issue?
Well, that's always dealing with remediation. I'm sure our listeners know this. Remediation's not cheap.
No.
Period. And it's not because, we're just charging people a ton of money. It's a lot of work. I was talking to a client the other day and I was telling him, I said, one thing that people don't realize when we do a mold remediation project, we have to decontaminate all of our equipment so that when I go to the next job, I'm not taking your problem into the next home. Well, that's hours worth of work just cleaning our own equipment, which
Absolutely.
Obviously we have our procedures. But I guess my point is, going back to what you said, it is a lot of money. Right now, interest rates aren't the greatest. So, let's say for a listener that's been in their home for 20 years, you probably have a bunch of equity, but you're going to take that equity and buy a new home.
Well, and also, I think you've said this, you've written a book about building a mold-resistant home, right?
Yes.
And I think in that book, you talk about the fact that so much of the materials that we build homes with today are toxic in a sense. They're not the same as like homes built in the 1800s where there was stone and rock and hardwood. Like the mixture of materials and sheetrock and other things were never meant to get wet. and they're made of toxic things that when wet just creates a soup of toxicity
Yep.
that helps mold grow.
Well, I mean, think about that. In the 1800s, what did they use to build their homes?
What, mostly rock,
Like
wood?
natural
Yeah,
materials.
natural material and materials that were resistant to the weather.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we use wood these days, but do you think the wood that they were using in the 1800s was from a tree farm the trees were pumped full of a bunch
No.
of chemicals? And I guess my point is a 2x4, which in the 1800s, they didn't really have 2x4s per se, but even in the early 1900s, their 2x4s were 2x4s, meaning, so for our listeners, an actual 2x4 these days is 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches.
So it is not actually 2x4.
No.
Okay.
But we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But my point is the wood back in the early 1900s, a 2x4, that wood likely came from a tree that was really, really old.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't geoengineered. I don't know the terminology you would use, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't fabricated and made to just like hormones and meats and whatever for the tree to grow quicker. It was naturally
produced.
Yeah. These days, the wood we're using the quality is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure our listeners know this, but if you don't, just go to your local lumber store like Home Depot or Lowe's and go look at their 2x4s and see how crooked and twisted they are.
Yeah.
The quality's terrible. Going back to, you were saying everything was built with natural things. Stone. I don't know if they used granite back then, but it wasn't a bunch of stuff that was manufactured in a plant composed of a bunch of toxins. Like, what do you think is in sheetrock? I have no idea what's in it.
Yeah, but lots of toxic chemicals that are not found naturally in the environment. Yeah.
And so, those are the concerns with, and I'm not trying to say we can't use sheetrock, but sheetrock is not designed to get wet.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the 1800s, they didn't even have running water. Maybe they did. I don't think so.
I don't think so. But, and also back in that time, you knew who was building your home because more than likely you and your family were. So you knew who the builders were. You knew what you were doing. Today, people just go into a subdivision community. They don't know the builder because the builder's building tract homes for the whole community. So you don't know the quality of the contractor who built the home. You don't even know who the person is who built the home. And you have no idea whether that brand new, beautiful looking home behind the veneer of how it looks, if underneath it's just a hot mess.
Yeah. I've mentioned it before, but I follow a home inspector on Facebook, and he's in Arizona. And the stuff he sees and finds, and he's backed up for, I think he said like a year or two.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy. But the stuff he's finding, like it's insane. We're talking $700,000-$800,000 homes. They're supposed to be in, Wyoming's a lot different. Utah, they're getting better. But in Arizona, you have to have an X amount of insulation in the attic. Let's say it's 12 inches, 18 inches. He goes up there and there's only 9 inches. It's half of what it's supposed to be. He calls out, cracked tub enclosures, cracked ceiling tiles, because they don't usually use asphalt shingles. But it is crazy because the builder, for those, they're these nationwide contractors. So they're, the actual owner of the company's probably never even been on site to this subdivision. And like you said, it's just, we live in a world where we want stuff for the least amount that we can pay, and we're willing to compromise quality for price.
Correct. So I want to go back to your original question, because you've had this question from so many clients where once you do a VPA with them, or you do a mold consult with them, or you go on site with them and you uncover all of the mold issues that are going on in their home, they literally turn to you and go, should we just move? Should we just, like, we've been dealing with this should we just move? What's your response to that?
I'd be very careful of doing that. We kind of just walk through all the steps. So let's say to our listener, let's say you're in a home. So I have a brother that lives in a home that my great-grandparents bought. So it was built in like the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that home, obviously, asbestos, lead-based paint. There are concerns with that. But the way it was built back then compared to how a new home would be built, night and day.
Yeah.
And, you brought up a really great point. Back in the 1800s, the people building the homes were probably the people living in it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have general contractors back then. And if it wasn't the people that were going to live in the home, it was somebody right there in their village or community. So they
Correct.
knew the people.
Correct.
And whereas these days, and I just brought it up, you're gonna have to get lawyers and sue this big company who has tons of money and makes billions a year. But going back to your question, it's like you said, like you pretty much could be jumping into the same situation.
Exactly.
And it just could have cost you a lot of stress, a lot of money, arguments probably with your spouse on what type of house should we sell. Like, so the simple answer is there can be mold in new construction and there can be mold anywhere.
Absolutely. So then what is the opportunity for people who are considering just buying new construction in their homes, or what are the things they need to be looking at if they're considering it?
Well, I would tell our listeners, if you could, and I know this is easy for me to say because of my experience, I would try to be your own general contractor. If you could. We have plenty of YouTube stuff, plenty of content on the internet, YouTube videos, AI, I mean, you name it. If you're the general contractor, you're going to have a lot more say over what goes on.
That's true.
Which I know is not the easiest. And most people, if you don't understand how the construction process goes, it could probably be very difficult. But I would be hesitant, though, to just go buy a home that is pretty much finished in these subdivisions. And, you know, they tell you, well, you can choose the color of the carpet or the color of the walls, but it's pretty much 75% built. I'd be careful doing that.
Okay.
Because you're not able to, and here's the downfall to that. If you were your own general contractor, and even if you weren't, let's say you hire a general contractor, you have been there through all phases of the building process.
Mm-hmm.
You were there when it was just a raw piece of land. And you saw the track hose dig the foundation. You saw the foundation poured. You saw the foundation sealed. You saw the drain tile system put in. You saw the rough framing before they sheetrock. Like, you have been there to see everything. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And so when you say you recommend people be the general contractor, you're also speaking from experience because you've been your own general contractor in the past.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I know it's easy for me to say, but for our listeners, like I've said, there's enough stuff out there. Like, being the general contractor, for the most part, means you're overseeing everything. And I have seen this in Utah. Most of the general contractors are just somebody that carries the license. They don't have a whole lot of experience in building. And I don't expect every contractor to have 30 years experience like I do. But I guess my point is the general contractor is kind of the one that sets everything up. Now, there's pros and cons to you being the general contractor as the listener versus hiring a general. A general contractor has the subs. He knows who's reputable. He has a little more pull because that's all he does. But on the other hand, he's going to get the cheapest people too.
Correct. And if you're the general contractor, which basically makes you the project manager over the build of your home, then you get to oversee who you hire, when they come in, you get to schedule them, you get to see if they're not showing up on time and address that. Like, so you get to really see what's going on so you can actually influence it.
Yeah. But for our listeners, like, even as a general contractor, it is difficult to get all the timing right for, you know, your sheetrocker and your HVAC guys and your plumbers and electricians. Like, I just don't want our listeners going, well, Steve told us it was a good idea, and then it turned into a nightmare, because it can. But it can be a nightmare by hiring a general.
Absolutely. So then what are the red flags that people should be looking for when building a new home?
Well, I would start with, like I was talking about with the foundation. I would ask the general, like, what type of waterproofing did you put on this foundation?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's the type of insulation you're putting in the attic? Are you using closed cell foam insulation, which is that spraying? Is it open cell foam or cell foam? Is it cellulose blown in? Is it rock wool, which is wool?
Mm-hmm.
You know, ask them questions, and then ask them a little bit about mold. Ask them about ventilation. Ask them the preventative measures that they do to prevent mold concerns or indoor air quality concerns. If they can't answer those questions, that's a red flag.
Okay.
Going back to that inspector I was telling you about in Arizona, he has a big following. He actually has certain contractors that will not even allow him, well, it's his clients, to do the inspection till after they have closed.
Because they don't want anything messing up their sale.
Their reasoning is, he walks on the roof, which voids the warranty, and they blame him and accuse him of causing problems. But at the end of the day, we all know why they don't want him there.
Absolutely.
So a major red flag would be your contractor does not allow you to do inspections before you close.
Okay. So definitely you want, if you're going to do new construction because you want to get rid of being in a mold situation, you need to make sure that you can proactively see what's going on with your new construction. You can do testing, you can do assessment. And if you can't, that's a red flag.
Yeah. Remember one of my childhood friends, Troy.
Mm-hmm.
Remember his parents were building a home.
That's right.
And they had a general contractor.
Mm-hmm.
They had me go over there at certain phases
Absolutely,
of the
to
construction.
review the work.
If their contractor would have said, no, Steve can't be here on site, that would have been a red flag.
100%.
And, for our listeners that are wondering, they're like, well, we get it. The contractor owns the home till you close on it. Well, once you've closed on it, you're SOL.
Yeah, they wash their hands of it, the contractor.
And we've talked about this. I talk about it in that book. It's very difficult to get the contractor to come out and fix things after you've already paid them.
100%. So it really is about being proactive and being involved in the process and keeping your eye on the process and hiring somebody, whether a consultant or an inspector who's going to help you through the process.
Yep. Then it just reminds me, I don't even know why I didn't think about this. It's probably because I don't do it that often, but I have a service that I offer. I have the home purchasing process and then the home building.
That's right. You do. And so you do offer the ability to do just what you did with Troy's parents and consult throughout the new construction process.
Yeah. And it's a difficult position that I get put in. I remember as a home inspector, contractors hated us. Like, we don't know what we're talking about. And it's just normal, but we do offer those services. But what I was going to talk about is something, and they actually just put me, I'm on the board of advisors. Is that what I am?
I think so. Board of advisors.
For AirGuard. So AirGuard is an indoor air quality monitoring system. Mm-hmm. We have one in our house. It's a company that's back east, so they're kind of used to higher humidity and stuff like that. We're kind of going through, what it's like to have one of these out west, but it's awesome. It monitors the air quality, humidity, and it will alert you if it thinks that there's a mold problem in your home.
Absolutely. And it never hurts to have plenty of ways to monitor your indoor air quality. We've got the Lufty, we have AirGuard, we have an air purifier with an app, we have humidity gauges with an app. It never hurts to have multiple ways.
Yeah, and there's water monitoring systems you can attach to your water main. We live in the day and age that I'm not saying there's no reason you should have a mold problem, but there's no reason why you shouldn't have preventative measures in place to prevent it.
Absolutely.
Because I think ultimately you're not always going to prevent mold. It
is what it is.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, it is. So what is your call to action for people?
Well, we talked about, the fall checklist, but do routine inspections. And I'm not saying a full home inspection, but routinely go check. Once a month, go into your mechanical room and check everything and make sure everything looks good.
Okay.
If you have a teenager that never comes out of their room, go in and look in their room every week, under their bed, and see if they have food that's been there for a week, growing mold and doing stuff that's not good.
Absolutely. And if you don't have an IAQ monitor, get the AirGuard.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll put the link in the description of this podcast for the AirGuard. It's a great piece of equipment to have.
Awesome.
All right. We appreciate all you listeners. Have a great week.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're worried about mold or indoor air quality in your home but don't know where to start, CNC Contractor Services has you covered. A virtual property assessment gives you real-time expert guidance on what's going on in your living environment, all from the comfort of your home. Whether you're buying, building, or just want peace of mind, visit cnccontractorservices.com to learn more about scheduling your VPA with Steve today.